us who will be like Jesus to the least of these? If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus.
Welcome to the King's Report for Wednesday, August 30th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Chungi and the 7th month and 9th day of that 7th month. And I'm Tim Elder here in place of the 2nd King of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon. And I'm here with Mr. Greg Noll. Good morning, Greg.
Good morning.
Let's start with the weather. Let's see what the weather's like. It's cloudy outside and in the
Foggy.
Foggy, is it? Is it?
Yeah.
Huh?
Very foggy.
I see. Well, if you're in the clouds, it's foggy. If you're under the clouds, it's cloudy.
Low-lying clouds.
Low-lying clouds. 57 degrees, and we're expected to get up to 76 degrees today. Still rather cool, but I think much closer to the average temperature for this time of year. Yesterday was rather cool, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
It was quite cool. It was in the 60s yesterday. The high was in the 60s. And then tonight will be 56. We're just going to get a little bit of, just a touch of Hurricane Harvey, Tropical Storm Harvey, on Saturday night, apparently. There's a possibility of a little bit of rain, but nothing. We won't even notice it. Not at all what the people down in Houston and Port Arthur and now southwest Louisiana are experiencing, where just tens of trillions of water, tons of water is being dropped on them. That's quite something, isn't it?
Yeah.
A trillion ton, I can't even imagine a trillion ton of water, but I saw a headline I think it was yesterday, I saw it, 11 trillion tons, and by now it must be more than that. How many trillions of tons of water is being dumped on that area?
There's not much you can do about it. It's just rising and rising, and
yeah,
you feel kind of helpless.
Right, they're having to let some of the water out of the dams, otherwise the dams will collapse.
Yeah.
But you know, on the King's Report on Friday and Saturday, we told people to get out. We told people that if you can, you should leave because a lot of rain is coming.
Go away for a 7-day vacation.
That's right, yeah. At that time, the forecast was, some forecasts were 50 inches of rain. 50 inches of rain is a lot of rain. A lot of rain. I've never experienced that much rain. And I know that one person at least took the advice. Actually, this person was planning to travel from New York, an airport in New York, to Houston, and then change airplanes in Houston, and then go on to another destination. And she was scheduled to leave Houston on a plane that was scheduled to fly out of Houston at midnight on Friday, just about the time the hurricane was hitting. At that time, a Category 4. And she changed planes and took a direct flight, and
it worked out very well for her.
I believe it worked out very well for her. Yeah. So
at no extra cost.
At no extra cost. Yes.
They were able to give her a direct flight.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great.
Amazing.
So you know, there's useful information that goes out in the King's Report. So please tell your friends. Yes. But it was interesting that. In Texas, prior to the landing of the hurricane, there was a disagreement between the governor and the mayor of Houston. The governor was a Republican and was telling people that they needed to get out of the way of the hurricane. But the mayor of Houston said, no. We don't want you doing that. We want you to stay and just ride it out. Well, a lot of people are riding it out, floating it out. Not so many people. Actually, I was trying to get an idea of the death toll so far.
18, I read this morning.
18, I read. But the New York Times is reporting 30. So I don't know where that difference comes from. I'm not sure why the New York Times is saying 30.
Yeah, it's an interesting. If everybody evacuated at the same time, there might be an issue there. What they should have done is started encouraging people to evacuate early, because if all 6 million people or whatever hit the road at the same time, and if the flood hits, then you do have a another kind of crisis on your hands.
Well, that's true. But I think the lesson here is that we have to make our own decision.
Yeah.
Um,
Animals know. They know instinctively when to go to high ground.
yeah.
We have lost touch with that ability.
The New York Times is saying 30, and I'm not sure if they are exaggerating it for some political purpose or just what's going on here. But see, here's the latest. Here's what the New York Times says. Storm made a second landfall just west of Cameron, Louisiana, the National Hurricane Center said at 4 a.m. Wednesday. Harvey was expected to move northeast, gradually weakening and becoming a tropical depression by Wednesday night. Local officials in Texas have reported at least 30 confirmed and suspected flood-related deaths. So I guess that's confirmed and suspected. So I guess they're throwing in the suspected as well.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll find a lot more.
Anyway, it'll be more than 30 probably.
Yeah.
That's really very tragic. But now it's going to stay on land now. It made landfall once, then went back out into the Gulf, and now has made a second landing this morning. And now it's going to come up here in this direction towards the northeast. But by the time it gets up here, it'll be so weak that we won't be able to distinguish it from a normal rainfall. In fact, we've had thunderstorms that I think that are much heavier than what we're going to get from Harvey. But there is a good lesson for us to learn from this, though, because this is an emergency situation, and we talk about being prepared for emergencies. So, are we prepared for this kind of an emergency? Frankly, I don't think we are. But
No.
if we had 50 inches of rain in this area, well, our church is
Would be
kind
flooded.
of
It would be flooded.
It would be flooded all the way, I think. We would just, have a mass baptismal service or something. But it would be flooded all the way up, almost to the rafters, I think. There's 50 inches of rain. That's how much rain falls. So in rivers or in valleys or in low-lying areas, it's going to be.
They had a devastating flood here. What is it?
1955.
Yeah.
So even though it's the mountainous areas, because at that time the river couldn't handle, the creeks couldn't handle all the water that was going through it, so the water backed up. And here in Newfoundland, there are still markers there that show where the high water mark was, and they're about 8 or 10 feet off the ground, aren't they?
Yeah, and there was a number of deaths involved.
About a dozen people died, yes, in this area. Yeah.
And of course, they made some adjustments. This pond over here was a result of that, I believe, this lake.
Actually, there's various stories that I've heard about that. There was a pond there, but yeah, they did make certain dry dams around the area, say to protect this village, so that now we think protected by these dry dams, but we'll have to see.
Yeah.
At that time, though, what happened in 1955 was that 2 tropical storms came up in rapid succession. 2 came up here in rapid succession, and there was flooding not only in this area but also in the Connecticut area, and so there's quite a lot of deaths back in 1955. So that was supposed to be a 100-year flood. Apparently this was more like a 1,000-year flood, I read someplace. It's the kind of flooding that only happens once every 1,000 years.
Well, the king has been warning this is going to be a combination of natural disasters and man-made disasters, and the message of getting right with God and being prepared is a good message.
Yes.
It's not paranoia. It's not conspiracy theories.
Let's
but it's
all
just
go out
smart,
and buy our boats.
It's smart thinking.
Smart thinking.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is make sure that we have the ability to gather information from sources that we judge to be credible. That we trust, from sources that we feel that I as an individual feel that I can trust a source. So I'm not talking about CNN, or I'm not talking about official, because this is what the mayor was saying. Please only listen to official sources. It's not going to be 50 inches. It's only not even half that. Don't have to worry. Just listen to the official news. Don't listen to that fake news that's saying 50 inches of rain are going to fall. This is what the mayor was saying, but he was wrong. And the people who listened to the so-called official news got the wrong information, and they were not able to act in time You know, that tragedy of what we heard about this 6 people in one family dying because they got to a point where it says, okay, we got to get out of here. So they all got in a van, but it was too late, and they got swept away. And apparently we should presume that they were all killed in the flood. So we need to be able to gather information. So one thing is certainly to have a radio that we're so used to getting all of our information over the internet, but we don't realize that in an emergency like this, the internet's not going to work. The radio, especially shortwave radio, I think is what we'll have to be depending on in this kind of an emergency situation. Yeah, I was listening to the radio yesterday about car radio about a woman in Houston area who said that when everything went out, she had to get out a radio, and she didn't even realize it was a radio. It was something that lying around, you know, but it was a radio, and it had batteries, and so she was able to listen to that and get her information from that. And people aren't used to using radios these days, but in an emergency like this, that's going to be very, very important, I think.
Another thing to add to the list.
Yes.
It is important.
Yes, I think a radio, I would say with a shortwave capability, because sometimes you get better information from stations that are far away. Because like this one, you know, with Harvey, the local stations are going to be giving you the official information. And the officials don't want a large-scale panic.
Right.
And so they don't give you the actual information.
Meanwhile, they've made plans.
Yeah, they've made plans.
Their exit strategy is clear.
Their families are out in New York or someplace.
Right.
Out on Cape Cod or whatever.
With their private jets.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yes, they're with their private jets. So oftentimes you need to get information from sources that are farther away. Sometimes we get better information from sources in England or UK than we do from our own American sources. So I think those are the lessons that we can learn from this situation to prepare for our own. We don't know what situations we may face in the future, whether it be water or fire or earthquake or whatever.
We are very blessed in this area. You can see why Father guided the second king here. It's we're on high ground. It doesn't have a history of earthquakes or even forest fires because of the amount of water that we get here. It's a very protected area. So I think there's wisdom in paying attention to what the king.
That's true. That's all true. But Satan is very creative. He might think of something. So whatever happens, though, we need to be prepared for a breakdown.
That's part of preparation, though, is going to live in an area that's relatively safe. It's not a good time to move to San Francisco, for example, or to a large city in general. I know you've given that warning many times, but even Yellowstone is a place that is a very volatile area right now in terms of a massive earthquake brewing. Certainly the Gulf of Mexico is a high-risk area because of the amount of hurricanes that go through there. Florida is another low-lying region that could easily be flooded. So I think that's part of preparation, making good decisions on where you and your family are going to live. Yes.
Right now I'm being guided by God to get to my Remas in a hurry. So let's do that. I'm in Acts chapter 9 this morning. Chapter 9, I'm going to start reading at, let's see. I'm going to start reading at verse 8. Acts 9, verse 8, and I'm going to go up to 15, I believe. Yes. 15 or 16. 8, and Saul arose from the earth, and when his eyes were opened, he saw no man, but they led him by the hand and brought him into Damascus. And he was 3 days without sight, and neither did eat nor drink. And there was a certain disciple at Damascus named Ananias, and to him said the Lord in a vision, Ananias. And he said, Behold, I am here, Lord. And the Lord said to him, Arise and go into the street which is called Straight, and inquire in the house of Judas for one called Saul of Tarsus, for behold, he prayeth. And he hath seen in a vision a man named Ananias coming in and putting his hand on him, that he might receive his sight. Then Ananias answered, Lord, I have heard many of this man, how much evil he hath done to thy saints at Jerusalem. And here he hath authority from the chief priests to bind all that call on thy name. But the Lord said unto him, Go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me, to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. So Ananias said, well, are you kidding me? Saul of Tarsus? You got to be joking, right? But God said, hey, he is a chosen vessel unto me. And then in the Cheonsongyong, Father said, but now nations are welcoming us. In America, we are an issue that concerns the whole nation. It is the same in Japan and in Europe. The world has finally entered the time when people can think of our blessed families as lighthouses of hope, saying they are model families among humankind and the path to preventing family breakdown and youth promiscuity. You should know how much blood and flesh was cut from me, and how many sorrowful, tearful situations I passed through before this came to be. Wow. So here this morning in our Remas, God is talking to us about vessels, chosen vessels. Saul was a very unexpected convert for the Christians at that time. And here in Sanctuary Church also we have unexpected visitors. In the Korean service, I was broadcast before this, I was talking with my wife about the gentleman who one day drove up in a stretch limousine, and he got out dressed in a green suit, I believe.
I remember that guy.
Yes, yeah. with an interesting hat. Who I think he believed himself to be the son of Jesus somehow, and he participated in the service. And after the service, as I understand, he went up to our king and says, "At last we meet." We don't know who God is going to guide to our church, and we try not to judge that. Ananias made a judgment here, or he was tempted to make a judgment here, saying, this guy, he's killing us. He's God. He has the authority to bind all that call on that name. And he was also, of course, there at the stoning of Jesus, of Stephen. So he was complicit in many martyrs of making a martyr of many Christian believers at that time. But God said, well, I've chosen him. He's my vessel. And I think that's. And then also in our Cheonsongyong Rima talks about blessed families. None of us became blessed families because we were qualified. Well, the only reason we became blessed families is because God chose us to be his vessels. We don't know who else God is choosing as his vessels. And also at the end of the Korean broadcast, my wife was mentioning that many people who are still in the Family Federation tell us quietly that, oh, my heart is with Hyungjinim. My heart is with Hyungjinim. But your heart can't be a vessel. It's your body. You have to come here in the flesh, because it's not just spiritual salvation anymore, is it? We're working on physical salvation. We're working on building a physical kingdom here. So to say that your heart is with Hyungjinim is not going to pass.
And we all have to be victorious over Satan, and part of that is separating from evil.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Separating from evil. Yes, separating your flesh from evil, your body from evil. My heart is with Hyungjinim. This is something that we hear often from the Korean Family Federation members. But I think it must be very frustrating for God, because as Father said, he sacrificed a huge amount in order to create as many blessed families that he did. And in February 2013, almost all those blessed families were taken back by Satan. That was his way of trying to erase everything that the Messiah had done during his time on earth. And he came close to succeeding. But his son, Hyung Jin-im, was faithful and separated himself from the Han mother, from the evil of Cheongpyeong, together with his older brother, Kuk Jin-im, and they came to Pennsylvania, northeast Pennsylvania, and there they reestablished their connection with Father. He went into the wilderness and spent a lot of time praying and searching and seeking after Father, and Father was able to reconnect with him. And then from that, Father's and God's providence could continue. If that had not happened, then it would have been a tremendous delay in the providence. But because Father has a son who is also his disciple, and it is the son whom he chose to be his representative body and inheritor, that Father is able now to work through that son. It's just a tremendous victory in the providence. I know that Father must be tremendously happy about that. We're coming up on the second anniversary of the Foundation Day, of the real Foundation Day, next week. This was the Foundation Day happened in 2015 when the true Cain, Kuk Jin-im, placed the crown on the head of his younger brother. Originally, this was supposed to have been done by the Han mother, to place the crown on her son's head and to bow down to Father's lineage, to submit to Father's lineage. And that would have been a victorious Foundation Day. But instead she crowned herself and presented herself as a kind of an empress.
And kicked out the son.
Kicked out the son, yes. And that is why we now have this worldwide judgment that is going on. But we are vessels. God has chosen us as vessels. And as vessels, our responsibility, as Greg said, is to separate from evil and to just to lay the conditions so that God can work through us. God can work through us. Some people say, oh, I'm not qualified. Of course you're not qualified. No one is qualified. Oh, I can't do it. Of course you can't do it. Only God can do it. So just to lay the conditions for God to be able to, and for Father to be able to work through us. That's what's important. Okay, let's take a break, and we'll be back in a minute or so with some of the news going on in the world today from a Choni Group perspective.
Not you.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
And welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, August 30th of 2017. I'm Tim Milder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyung Jin-moon, who will be conducting the Korean service later on this morning. Let's look at the AP story on the situation in Texas. This is one that was linked by Drudge. With its flood defenses strained, the crippled city of Houston anxiously watched dams and levees Tuesday to see if they would hold until the rain stops, and meteorologists offered the first reason for hope, a forecast with less than an inch of rain and even a chance for sunshine. The human toll continued to mount, both in deaths and in ever-swelling number of scared people made homeless by the catastrophic storm that is now the heaviest tropical downpour in U.S. history. The city's largest shelter was overflowing when the mayor announced plans to create space for thousands of extra people by opening 2 and possibly 3 more mega shelters. We are not turning anyone away, but it does mean we need to expand our capabilities and our capacity, Mayor Sylvester Turner said. Relief is coming. The rescues went on. Federal and local agencies said they had lifted more than 13,000 people out of the floodwaters in the Houston area and surrounding cities and counties. Louisiana's governor offered to take in Harvey victims from Texas, and televangelist Joel Osteen opened his Houston megachurch, a 16,000-seat former arena, after critics blasted him on social media for not acting to help families displaced by the storm. Meteorologists said the sprawling city would soon get a chance to dry out. When Harvey returns to land Wednesday, it's the end of the beginning, National Hurricane Center meteorologist Dennis Feltgen said. Harvey will spend much of Thursday dropping rain on Louisiana before moving on to Arkansas, Tennessee, and parts of Missouri, which could also see flooding. But Feltgen cautioned we're not done with this. There is still an awful lot of real estate and a lot of people who are going to feel the impacts of the storm. The National Weather Service predicted less than an inch of rain for Houston on Wednesday and only a 30% chance of showers and thunderstorms for Thursday. Friday's forecast called for mostly sunny skies with a high near 94. In all, more than 17,000 people have sought refuge in Texas shelters, and that number seemed certain to increase, the American Red Cross said. The city's largest shelter, the George R. Brown Convention Center, held more than 9,000 people, almost twice the number officials originally planned to house there. The crowds included many from outside Houston. By the end of the day, the Toyota Center, home of the NBA's Rockets, had begun accepting people who could not find space at the convention center. Louisiana Governor John Bell Edwards said he expected Texas officials to decide within 48 hours whether to accept his offer, which comes as Louisiana deals with its own flooding. About 500 people were evacuated from flooded neighborhoods in southwest Louisiana, Edwards said. The city has asked the Federal Emergency Management Agency for more supplies, including cots and food, with an additional 10,000 people. For an additional 10,000 people, said the mayor, who hoped to get the supplies no later than Wednesday. In an apparent response to scattered reports of looting, the mayor also imposed a curfew. Police Chief Art Acevedo said the violators would be questioned, searched, and arrested. 4 days after the storm ravaged the Texas coastline as a hurricane, authorities and family members have reported more than a dozen deaths from Harvey. They include a woman killed when heavy rain sent a large oak tree crashing onto her trailer, and another woman who apparently drowned after her vehicle was swept off a bridge. Houston police confirmed that 60-year-old officer drowned in his patrol car after he became trapped in high water while driving to work. Sergeant Steve Perez had been with the force for 34 years. 6 members of a family were feared dead after the van sank into Greens Bayou in East Houston. A Houston hotel said one of its employees disappeared while helping about 100 guests and workers evacuate the building. Authorities acknowledged that fatalities from Harvey could soar once the floodwaters start to recede from one of America's largest metropolitan centers. A pair of 70-year-old reservoir dams that protect downtown Houston and a levee in a suburban subdivision began overflowing Tuesday, adding to the rising floodwaters. Engineers began releasing water from the Addicks and Barker reservoirs Monday to ease the strain on the dams, but the releases were not enough to relieve the pressure after the relentless downpours, Army Corps of Engineer officials said, but both reservoirs are at record heights. So we have more and more situations here. Among the worries is debris coming down the river and crashing into structures, and the possibility that pipelines in the riverbed will be scoured by swift currents. In 1994, a pipeline ruptured on the river near the Interstate 10 and caught fire.
A lot of oil refineries.
Yeah. So also apparently gas prices are expected to go up here a bit. They haven't yet. I noticed yesterday. I bought gas yesterday and still the same price as before. Before it breaks up, Harvey could creep as far east as Mississippi by Thursday, meaning New Orleans, where Hurricane Katrina unleashed its full wrath in 2005 is Harvey's path. I think, though, it's mostly going northeast, though, now. It's not going towards New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's headed towards Tennessee and Missouri, and it may even come up here, but by that time all the rain will be gone, or almost all the rain will be gone. So we need to, I think there are various places on the internet where people can donate and help the people who are suffering from this situation. And certainly in this kind of situation, we want private organizations and private individuals to donate. And if we have any people in the area, then they can maybe come and stay with you. I think at the time of Katrina, that kind of a situation was going on within our church. I remember I was in Virginia at the time, I think, at the time of Katrina, and we had some people up from New Orleans area coming in and staying with the families in the Northern Virginia area. If any of our sanctuary people down in Houston area need a place, I'm sure that if you can contact us and we can help you either here or someplace on the way closer by or something like that to connect people so that people need places to stay. I know these large mass refugee centers can be dangerous sometimes. In fact, in a time of Katrina, there was a lot of situations going on in the evacuation centers.
Well, it becomes like a hospital. So the place is filled with germs and all sorts of potential issues that arise from being in crowded situations.
Yeah. Crime going on there, yeah.
On Sunday, we did a fundraiser for one of our sanctuarians in Houston. Good. And some money was raised and sent down there. Luce sent money by Western Union down to the person. So
wonderful.
There was a little bit of help, but certainly, we could certainly put up people here if
we haven't had any information to that effect.
Right.
But if it arises, yes. Let's see what else is going on. Is there anything else that we need to say about the Harvey?
Well, I think Houston is in a flood zone. It's my understanding. So again, that's not this kind of city. Not really smart to be building a city of how many people? It's like 10 million people.
In the entire area, perhaps that many. Yes, I think Houston itself is only about 4 million something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And same thing with New Orleans. It's below sea level. So these kind of things, in one sense, they shouldn't be unexpected. This is going to happen when you live next to a huge body of water with hurricanes and being very low elevation.
Well, the other thing is that if you have to live there, because if you're going to have oil refineries, stuff like that, it has to be on the coast, right? And since there's oil being pumped out of the Gulf, it makes sense to have oil refineries in the area. So if you have to live there, then, I don't know, buy a boat, I don't know, be ready. So that you can and always be aware of what's going on and the news and make a decision to get out. Don't wait for someone to tell you. Like, okay, so yeah, if everyone goes at once, then there are all sorts of issues that can arise.
Right.
So beat the traffic, beat the traffic and take routes that other people don't take them. Plan ahead.
Pray to God.
Yeah. Here's how the whole situation is being politicized. Members of the major media who apparently moonlight as climate scientists are already politicizing Hurricane Harvey, insisting the storm provides the validity of the global warming theory and mocking Republicans who disagree, even as many of the actual scientists who appear on these shows have been noticeably more circumspect in pinning Harvey on global warming for the flooding in Houston. The media isn't letting that skepticism rain on their parade. CNN's Jeffrey Toobin, for one, mocked Republicans who questioned the global warming theory. Quote, man-made climate change is a myth. The Republican Party is united on that, unquote, Toobin said. Quote, climate change is part of the story. We focus on the heroism, quite appropriately, of the people who are trying to save lives. But why disasters like this occur and their intensity is part of the problem, unquote. The New Yorker's Ryan Leza said Hurricane Harvey will help Democrats make their case against President Trump's proposed budget, which calls for the construction of a border wall and does not increase funds for global warming-related projects. His budget that he presented to Congress cut a lot of programs, or wanted to cut a lot of programs, but are helpful in a natural disaster like that, Lisa said. He also threatened to shut down the government if the border wall is not built. Well, in the wake of a natural disaster like this, the federal government is leading the effort. Is Trump really going to stick a promise to shut down the government? Everyone's saying this is the storm of the century, the 500-year storm. 12 years ago it was Katrina. We've had now 3 storms now in 12 years that were as bad as this, Lisa continued, and a lot of Democrats will say, you know, climate change is actually this is the kind of flooding you would predict based on the climate change model. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow likewise pointed to there being 6 major storms in the Gulf since 1989 as evidence for the climate change theory. CNN's Ron Brownstein also joined the chorus, saying there is no doubt climate warming is to blame. The scientists are reluctant to attribute any individual storm to a change in climate, he said Tuesday. But in my CNN.com column today, I quote the former head of NOAA saying this is a preview of the future. There's no doubt that climate change, particularly because of warming the ocean waters and the Gulf waters, makes storms like this more common. But climate change scientists disagree, that saying that humidity actually dampens the propensity for tropical storms like Harvey. The problem with this is that the ability of evaporation to drive tropical storms relies not only on temperature but humidity as well, and calls for drier, less humid air. The claims for starkly higher temperatures are based upon there being more humidity, not less. Hardly a case for storminess with global warming, MIT's Richard Linson wrote in the Wall Street Journal. Of course, this kind of thing, disaster is always political. That's not just true in today's America, but also in the past. In China, it was said that he who rules the waters rules the empire, or rules the world, or something like this. Because you know, China always had flooding with their large rivers, and always storms and natural phenomenon become political. And it was true in ancient China, and it's true in America today. And somehow, in the ancient China, the idea was that if you had a lot of natural disasters, this was a sign that the emperor had lost the mandate of heaven, and it was time for a change, time for a new dynasty to come in. And something similar is going on in the theory and the thinking of the leftist media today, in the CNN and other mega media today. Obviously, they think that Trump does not have the mandate of heaven. But the truth, of course, is that he does have the mandate of heaven in a real sense, because he is doing God's work right now in terms of restoring America's sovereignty. Let's see if there's anything else we need to.
The mayor. Is this the same mayor
that's told everybody to stay put? Yeah.
No,
yeah.
but also wanted to shut down religious preachers. I mean, preachers and their.
I think it must be a different mayor.
Is that a different mayor?
That was a lesbian woman, and I don't know. This person has a male name, but that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean anything these days, of course. But I think that may be a different mayor.
Might have been a small town mayor outside of Houston or something like that.
That wanted to shut down the preachers.
Yeah,
that was the mayor of Houston. Yeah,
was the mayor?
That was the mayor of Houston. Yes. But I think this may be a different mayor. I think she lost the election last year.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's still a Democrat though. So anyway, Houston is under curfew. We hope that the powers that be do not get tempted into extending that curfew beyond what it needs to be in order to protect against looters. Because that's always the temptation right now in these kinds of natural disasters, for people in positions of power to exercise power.
Mm-hmm.
Now I got a chance to exercise my power. Let the people see what I can do. This kind of thing. So we hear, what is this headline here on Drudge? A life sentence for looters.
Okay, yeah, I saw that.
Houston police catch 14 armed robbers and looters amid flood emergency. This is on ABC Houston Police Chief Art Acevedo said he is not going to tolerate criminals taking advantage of people in the community during such a devastating time. They've announced a curfew from 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. He said his officers arrested 14 alleged looters since Sunday. These arrests will face stiffer punishments under a Texas law providing heftier penalties during a crisis, prosecutors announced Tuesday. People displaced or harmed in this storm are not going to be easy prey, Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg said. Burglarizing a home would normally bring a penalty of 2 to 20 years in prison, but now brings 5 years to life. This is the state of Texas. We are a welcoming city, but we are not going to tolerate people victimizing others, Acevedo said. He said he will push for the fullest prosecution possible for any crimes committed during such a sensitive time. Wow, life sentence for burglarizing a home. That is Texas. That is Texas, no doubt.
Big sentence.
Yes. All right, but let's pay attention to this situation, though, to see what we can learn in terms of our own preparedness, so that no matter what may be coming, we can be prepared. All right, is it about time for a break? Let's take a break now, and we'll be back in a minute or so with more news from a Chugga perspective.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, August 30th of 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon, and I'm here with Mr. Greg Noll. Now, we should talk about North Korea next, but there's another article that's just pulling my attention so much that I just cannot resist it. And this is that in the Wall Street Journal, so there's a Russian businessman creating a utopia that's going to be in space, orbiting in space. But he has a problem. The people who are going to go there can't decide over how to rule themselves, especially about taxes and politics. They're in need of a constitution.
That could be the first one.
And we have one.
We should FedEx them one right away.
I think we have a product now. It looks like maybe a market is appearing. Let's go through this for a minute before we go to North Korea. We may skip North Korea today. I don't know. I mean, they're shooting missiles, all right? That's all that's happening there. What tops the agenda for a new space colony? A debate over taxes. A Russian businessman plans to put in orbit a utopia called Asgardia, or I don't know how you pronounce that. Asgardia or Asgardia, Asgardia, I guess. Asgardia. If only he could get his citizens to agree on how to run it. It's tough enough to create a nation in space. There's the Earth orbiting colony to plan, the provisioning to figure out how, and the technical challenge of launching thousands of people. On top of that, you have to make folks get along before they even rocket up there. The scale of the human task is dawning on Russian businessman and scientist Igor, his name is even harder to pronounce, Asher Bailey, I guess, who last year drew headlines with his plan for a peaceful democratic utopia dubbed Asgardia above the stratosphere. More than 300,000 people from 217 countries and territories signed up online to be Asgardians, among them starry-eyed dreamers, sci-fi fans, and political idealists. And 110,000 of them are now officially citizens. While Dr. Asher Bailey's lofty plan involves launching space arcs into lower Earth orbit by 2025, he has found himself caught up in an earthly debates among his people about pesky details such as the space nation's constitution and potential taxes. Not to mention its prospective shortage of women. Among problems facing Asgardia, the biggest is self-organization, said Dr. Asher Bailey, 53, because no one has ever tried organizing what is today 100,000 citizens from 200 countries who don't know each other and live in different places on Earth. Dr. Asher Bailey, based in Moscow, has few details about how Asgardia, named after Asgard, the godly realm of Norse mythology, will be built, launched, and run. See, there's where he's going wrong already.
That's right.
It's got to be Christ-centered.
That's right.
It's got to
say this project is doomed for failure.
Yeah, I think, basing it on some god of Norse mythology, I'd say that was the first wrong step. It's got to be based on the words of the second coming of Christ. Would be built, launched, and run. Specifics are to be decided by the nation's parliament. One mission, guard against space threats such as asteroids. My task is to defend planet Earth and defend humanity, Dr. Asher Bailey said in a phone interview, nothing more. Before liftoff, the Soviet-trained engineer wants the United Nations to recognize Asgardia as a country. He plans to establish a government online and devise a flag, anthem, and currency. Initially, citizens will get to send data into space on a satellite he plans to launch from the U.S. this fall. Dr. Asher Bailey, who owns an industrial complex, he values at $200 million, insists he is deadly serious. $200 million, he's not even very rich, is he?
That's not very rich at all.
Yeah.
How can he possibly afford this kind of project? Maybe as investors.
Insists he is deadly serious. He is the sole funder and pays about 50 people to manage Asgardia's affairs. His plan is to pay for launches through crowdfunding. Good luck with that. Others are skeptical of the project's success. I think the initiators don't have any idea what they are doing, legally speaking, said space law professor Franz van der Dunk of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And earthbound Asgardians, it turns out, are a fractious lot. Hailing from Tulsa to Turkey to East Timor, they speak different languages and can't agree on basic policies. Hotly debated issues include the merits of establishing diplomatic relations with extraterritorials, whether refugees should be welcomed. Of course, yeah, migrants, especially Arab terrorists. You got to have a few of those. And what role cryptocurrency should play.
Diversity.
The biggest fault line is Asgardia's constitution, which Dr. Asher Bailey and his advisors wrote. Unveiled in June, it met opprobrium from rebellious corners of the would-be nation. I'd say the community is very divided, said Chris Hawkes, 58, a teacher from Preston, England, who joined because he liked the idea of a societal restart. Mr. Hawkes said the Constitution accords too much power to Dr. Asher Bailey by declaring Asgardia as a space kingdom.
He's a king.
Kingdom. He's a
he
king.
wanted to be a king.
Giving him extensive rights to determine the composition of the powerful Supreme Space Council. No, listen, they're going at it all wrong, all wrong. There's so much mishmash in the Constitution, he said. Debate raged on other aspects of the Constitution, from the minimum age of 40 for parliamentarians to worries that Asgardia would impose taxes before launch.
Taxes already. It hasn't even launched.
It hasn't even launched, yes. Does our Constitution have a minimum age? I don't think it does it? For being members of Parliament. You just have to be,
No.
I have to check again.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a minimum age. I have to check again.
On the president, there is.
There is? What is it, 35?
35, I thought.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Have to check.
I have to check. Maybe during the break we can bring that up. Such a levy, fretted one Asgardian online, would mean citizens supporting a nation that has few assets, no territory, no institutions, and no international recognition.
No industry.
The Constitution states that paying taxes is voluntary. Critics online,
It also gives the freedom for such nations to form, right? As this.
Our Constitution?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. You know, if their Constitution doesn't work out, they can always come to us, yeah. I mean, this is exactly the kind of thing that our Constitution is designed for, actually. Yeah. But they have to read the preamble and
Except father.
Well, to adopt the Constitution, you don't have to accept father as Messiah. You just have to say, okay, we want to accept this Constitution. But in the process, you know, the preamble clearly states where this comes from.
Right.
So de facto, they will end up accepting father, yes, or at least a majority of the people who vote in favor of this Constitution, whatever process they devise for adopting the Constitution. You know, if they decide that 2/3 have to agree, then 2/3 would have to accept that this is based on Reverend Sun Myung Moon's words in the 8 great textbooks. Critics online clash with those loyal to the founder. Critics' online clashes with those loyal to the founder got heated. The disputes delayed ratification of the Constitution, which was scheduled for June 18th for almost 6 weeks. Over 300,000 who became Asgardians by signing up online. Only the 110,000 who finally voted to approve the Constitution were granted official citizenship. So you have to vote in favor of the Constitution to be a citizen? That doesn't seem fair. You know, I mean, that doesn't seem fair.
Well, it's true with any country, right? You have to play by the rules if you're going to be a citizen of that country.
Yeah, but I understand that. But for example, when the United States was formed, all right, when you had 13 colonies and the states were ratifying the Constitution.
Right.
For example, in Pennsylvania, if 60% of the people voted in favor of ratification, for example, if majority voted in favor of ratification, then everyone in Pennsylvania became a citizen of the United States, even the people who voted against that.
Right.
Yeah, so somehow,
but you don't have colonies here. You have individuals that are voting.
Anyways, I'm not an Asgardian, so it's none of my business. Jen Rosnicki, 40, a child care provider in Calgary, Canada, quit Asgardia when it was revealed that those who didn't approve the Constitution would be considered tourists, not citizens. I said, I was sad that it happened because I had so much hope for Asgardia, she said. When I joined a year ago, my husband said, you know, it's going to descend into madness. And I said, no, I have faith. Dr. Ash Bailey said he simply wants to establish a more structured society and would serve only one 5-year term. But I thought he's king. As for anointing himself king, he said Asgardia would be a constitutional monarchy similar to those of Europe. Isn't this interesting? Isn't this interesting? That people, you know, they have some. It's not even image. It's kind of a shadow, maybe.
Right.
But it's a kingdom, and they want to establish a constitution based on a god. wrong God, but.
But you could say it's kind of paving the way, maybe, for people to accept the Cheonggyeolguk Constitution, a constitutional monarchy of sorts. People are beginning to think about it. They're beginning to talk about it.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Creating a sovereign nation that's different than the fallen nations of the world. Yeah,
maybe this lady in Calgary, maybe she can connect. I don't know. If she has faith, yeah. He has created a Vienna-based group named NGO Asgardia to manage the nation. It is now holding parliamentary elections with almost 4,000 running for seats, with candidates including an Indian computer scientist, an American high school teacher, and a British hypnotherapist. While some have fleshed out platforms advocating policies from universal basic income to building a virtual reality-based society, many haven't bothered. Lena DeWin, director of the NGO, recently stressed on Facebook that candidates needed platforms. She fielded questions from Asgardians about technicalities, such as potential problems for those who live in countries that have banned dual citizenship. It's not like you're a citizen of Asgardia and Canada at the same time, she responded. These are just earthly countries. Asgardia will seek recognition from individual countries before venturing into space, she said, a process that has begun by sending messages of congratulations to newly elected leaders such as Francis Emmanuel Macron. This is, again, the mouse that roared. What? You know, in that movie or in that book, the country declared war on the United States as a way of developing their economy, because they saw how, because young people don't know that book, I think, because they saw how Germany and Japan got a lot of aid from the United States after losing World War II. They decided, hey, they got a good idea to develop our economy. We need to declare war on the United States. And so they declared war, and they sent a declaration of war, but it got lost in the mail. so that's why I said here they're sending messages of congratulations to newly elected leaders such as Francis Emmanuel Macron. I mean, I don't even know if they got to him. To join the UN, Asgardia needs Security Council blessing. He must persuade 2/3 of member states that it is a peace-loving state and is able to, and willing to carry out the obligations of the UN Charter, said Dan Thomas, the UN spokesman. Asgardia's constitution is available in 12 languages and states that it will strive towards a single Asgardian language, a subject of intense discussion among Asgardians, with suggestions ranging from Esperanto to a hybrid of Chinese and English. Chinese and English hybrid. Then there's a vexing demographic problem. As of March, 16% of Asgardians were women.
That is a problem.
Not good. Prompting the organization to call for members to find ways to get more to join.
Transgender.
We definitely need more women, said Samuel Fisher. Yeah, I mean, what is this? They're sexist. They're only recognizing two sexes. We definitely need more women, said Samuel Fisher, 25, a Colorado-based Asgardian and book author, but we're not in space right now. Oh, my.
I think they are in space right now.
Yeah, I agree. So
this is really demonstrating the importance of the Constitution coming
Yes.
from God.
yes, that's right.
You know,
Yes,
if you
thank
get
you.
human beings involved,
Yes,
it's
that's
nothing
right.
but chaos.
There's nothing but chaos, right? Yeah, that is so true. So I guess somehow people are kind of talking about it, but I don't know. They seems to be they're pretty far off, though. I don't know if this is really paving the way. But at least the Wall Street Journal is talking about it.
Well, maybe they'll come to that same conclusion that the Constitution has to derive from a godly source, because look at the mayhem that this one has created. So it will probably be a total disaster, is my prediction.
Well, of course it will be,
Yeah.
and it already is. But
And he doesn't have enough money to really launch this
Yeah.
project.
But so let's look at this. So what has he done already? A Russian businessman with $200 million has
200 million in assets. It's not even
200 million
available cash.
in assets, has created something that has attracted the attention of 300,000 people.
That's encouraging.
What are we doing? How come we haven't gotten up to 300,000 yet? From 217 countries and territories.
We need to get the word out.
Yeah, we do. This guy is beating us in that respect.
Well, he's got all the sci-fi people on his side. which
I
are,
see.
It's an interesting demographic.
I see. So, yeah, if anyone's looking for a constitution, we have one, just to let people know. But this doesn't make sense to me. So 300,000 people and 110,000 people, so it looks like actually the people who voted in favor of the Constitution were a minority. Only about a third of the people, barely a third of the people voted in favor of the Constitution. And they're kicking out the other 2/3, saying you're only tourists.
You're tourists.
You're
well,
tourists.
The first round was just people signed up online. It's like signing up for an email list. No real commitment. Whereas the 100,000, that was a little bit
110,000.
110,000 worth,
Yeah.
more of a commitment.
Mhm.
You probably had to fill out a questionnaire or something.
Well, you just had to vote for the Constitution.
Yeah, yes or no.
Yes or no, yes. And if you voted for the Constitution, you're a citizen.
So the 300,000 is kind of a bogus number.
Bogus
People,
number. Okay.
Yeah, this looks cool. Yeah, let's just sign up for it.
But still, he got 110,000 people to vote yes for his Constitution, with himself as king.
That does take faith.
That does take faith, doesn't it?
That's faith without reason, though.
Yes. See, wasn't that a lot better than talking about North Korea? But I don't know if we can avoid North Korea, though. I think we cannot. Let's take a break, and we'll come back, and we'll talk about North Korea. We have to do that.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for August 30th, 2017. Yes, it's the next to the last day of August. I'm Tim Elder,
Wow.
sitting in for the second King of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon. Where did August go?
It's my birthday today.
It is your birthday
Yes,
today.
August 30th.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Greg.
All
Happy
right.
birthday to you. The whole
thank you.
world.
The
whole internet
can
world.
celebrate. Well, you know, that was well, there was a holiday, right? August 30th last year, I think was, or was it 2 years ago? Blessing.
Last year.
Was that
Last
the
year.
Seonghwa,
That was the Seonghwa and the Foundation Day. Yes,
Foundation Day and Blessing, yeah. So
Yes.
that was a special day.
that was a special day for you. Yes. So Kim Jong-un is saying that he's going to keep shooting missiles. That is, and he says that if I shoot enough missiles, Americans will start talking to me. That's basically his line of reasoning.
This guy is really whacked.
And it says that you have to deal with the Americans with force. Laughing at the world, Kim Jong-un cackles like a maniac as he oversees the latest North Korea missile launch and taunts Trump that it's just a curtain raiser for a possible strike on Guam. North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un vowed to fire more missiles as pictures emerged of the despot cackling maniacally as he oversaw the launch described as just a curtain raiser. Just one day after his latest launch brought his country and America one step closer to war, the smirking communist called for more weapons testing over the Pacific to advance his country's ability to contain Guam. He has Guam on his mind, doesn't he?
Yeah. That wouldn't be my first concern.
State media reported that the dictator had said the current ballistic rocket launching drill, like a real war, is the first step of the military operation of the Korean People's Army in the Pacific and a meaningful prelude to containing Guam. The Rodong Shinmun newspaper, a mouthpiece of the North's ruling party, on Wednesday carried more than 20 pictures of the launch near Pyongyang. One showed Kim smiling broadly at a desk with a map of the Northwest Pacific surrounded by aides. The fiery outburst came as the UN Security Council, which includes Russia and Kim's key ally China, unanimously condemned the outrageous launch. A forceful UN statement agreed in the earlier hours of this morning saw Beijing fall in line with the US and Europe in condemning Kim's latest act of saber-rattling. It accuses the regime of undermining regional peace and stability. Yet while nervous diplomats discussed the crisis in New York, Kim was already firing off his latest salvo in the war of words between him and Washington. He labeled yesterday's show of force, which saw a rocket fly over Japan, as a meaningful prelude to containing Guam, America's Pacific military base. Kim threatened to unleash his arsenal on the U.S. island. He used to be threatening Washington, wasn't he? Washington and New York.
More mainland. Right?
Yeah. And so now he's I guess that's compromise.
So Guam, is it a much larger military base than, say, what's in Japan or South Korea? I mean, why is he targeting Guam? I guess it's a U.S. territory.
Yeah, it's a U.S. territory, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's more of a direct attack on the United States.
But this is the point I wanted to make because, why, for example, why not Okinawa? Why Guam and not Okinawa?
Right.
One thing is, I think Guam is a larger base, I think, than what is on Okinawa. But more than that, I think, China and North Korea don't want to provoke Japan.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think that is their Achilles heel.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the point where American policymakers need to focus. That, I think China, and because of China and North Korea, are not afraid of America. Because China and America already fought 2 wars. And China has not fared so badly in either one of them. The first war was the Korean War, which was basically a war between the United States and China. Because after North Korea attacked, the United States, of course, the 16 UN countries and so forth, but it was basically America was there and had operational control over all the forces there. And once, General MacArthur led the UN forces up to the Yalu River by October, in about, 3 months plus, 3.5 months, and defeated the North Korean army. But then China intervened, and then what was left of the North Korean military was subsumed by China. So from that point on, from October 1950 until July of 1953, that war was basically a war between the United States and China. And for China, if you look at it, they at the time that they intervened, the U.S. was on, or mostly U.S. forces were on the Yalu River, and they pushed back the Americans and the UN forces back down to where they are today, in the middle of the peninsula, the 38th parallel, more or less. So it was not really a tie for China. It was kind of a
victory.
Kind of a victory for China.
Yeah.
And the second war between the United States and China, I think you can say, was the Vietnam War, where it was a proxy war, but I think it was a war between U.S. and China, and there too, the U.S. was forced to completely withdraw there. So I don't think China is afraid of the United States. Of course, that doesn't mean that they're willing to go one-on-one, head-to-head with the United States today, because they know that they don't have that capability today, and they need to build it up. But they're fundamentally not afraid of America. They understand America. What they are afraid of, the country that they are afraid of, is Japan. And a nuclear-armed Japan is what they are deathly afraid of.
And that's what they're talking about now, more and more.
And I think, people talk, I say that, well, the only way that this can be solved is if China goes in there and eliminates the nuclear threat. And people say, well, how are you going to get China to do that? I think the country that can get China to do that may be Japan. Because if Japan starts talking about arming to the extent, it's already talking about rearming and increasing its military force to a level that they have not had for many years. But if they even start talking about getting nuclear weapons, then China will listen. China will pay attention.
What's Abe saying about that?
Well, we don't want Abe to say it, because if he says it, if the prime minister says it, he'll have to resign in 5 minutes. They'll force him to resign. He can't. So it cannot be done that way. It has to be done in the good old Asian indirect way, so that everybody knows what's being said without anybody saying anything. But if that, and it can be done by many indirect ways, where China and North Korea get the message that, okay, Japan is being cut loose, and America is going along with it, that America is willing to allow, because until now, basically, U.S. has sort of, in one sense, protected Japan, but also kind of
Clamp down on it.
clamp down on Japan, especially in terms of acquiring nuclear weapons, because there are people in Japan who would like to do that. Obviously, Japan has the scientific and engineering capabilities to build nuclear weapons, and that's not a problem. And they could do it in a relatively short time, I think. So if Japan starts talking that way, or starts to hint, sort of indirectly, that this is what they're interested in, and the U.S. is not going to stop them, then I think China will start to move and decide, okay, now we gotta go to the source of the problem and eliminate the problem. And the problem is the nuclear threat, North Korea's nuclear threat. So just eliminate that, and then China can keep its puppet state there, and have its buffer zone with South Korea.
It seems like North Korea is just leading the pack of evildoers. There's other countries that will soon have the same kind of capabilities.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So even if you deal with the North Korean tension today, it's still, there's huge issues ahead.
Yeah. Well, it's like, hitting the mole, that game where you hit the mole whenever it pops up. Definitely there will be another nuclear weapon used in conflict situation at some point, somewhere. We have this technology. Humanity has this technology. You cannot put that genie back in the Bible, back in the bottle. And at some point, someone will use a nuclear device with an intention to actually kill people.
Yeah.
We're trying to, I guess, trying to delay that, I guess. But yeah.
What the king talked about yesterday was in Cheongil-guk, and maybe this applies to the world situation now, is that we just, as citizens, we do not allow the rise of these kind of powers to be able to use nuclear weapons in such a destructive fashion. He was talking about citizens. If a bully or somebody, a tyrant comes along, he's quickly dealt with. It's not like he's allowed to stay in power and continue to amass weapons of this nature to destroy. So I don't know. It's a little bit of a curious. You got Iran that is quickly advancing forward, a huge threat to the Middle East and Israel, eventually to the United States. I think more and more countries are going to be, Russia certainly is always a threat.
And China itself as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, the kind of the balance of power regime that was set up after World War II is going to completely dissolve. The idea was, of course, and the idea with NATO was the same thing. The idea with the EU also to control countries, and this is what's a problem. This is the fundamental problem with the what the elites have in mind. Like this guy who's declaring himself king of this colony in space. They declare themselves king, and they sort of establish their own de facto constitution, right? That this is the we're going to establish this through the UN, and we're going to rule the world through the UN, so that we can rule the world in the way that we want. We can have wars when we want them, and have peace when we want them, and when we want that, and just do what we want. But it doesn't work in the end because it's not of God. It eventually falls apart because it just doesn't. Unless you have something that's from God, it's not going to last forever. And this thing that they've been doing since the end of World War II is now 72 years, but it's coming to its end. It's coming to its end. All right, we have a few minutes left. Let's see if there's anything else. I think that's about enough about North Korea. Right now they're having the Burning Man Burning Man thing in Nevada. A lot of debauchery going on there. Judge throws out a Palin defamation suit against the New York Times. And mysterious jets over Philadelphia. You know what they turned out to be? Saudi Arabian planes. Not making this up. Officials, mysterious jets over Philly were actually Saudi Arabian aircraft. Oh, did you know we had a bank robbery yesterday?
I did hear about that. Yes.
Tannersville. A real live bank robbery.
Is that where the nuns were?
Yes. Two people dressed as nuns tried to rob a bank, but for some reason they didn't. They quit in the middle and left. Maybe they realized, oh wow, this is Pennsylvania. We thought we were in New York. These people here, they might have guns. We better get out of here.
Right.
I don't know if that was the case, but anyway, they started to rob a bank, then they quit in the middle and just left without
Maybe
any money.
God spoke to them.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, let's go to the planes in the sky of Philadelphia. We're learning more about the 5 planes flying in formation Monday night over Philadelphia and South Jersey area. A spokesman for the FAA told KYW News Radio on Monday that the group of jets flying in formation was a military operation. What does that mean exactly? We now know that they were Saudi Arabian aircraft headed back home by way of Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst in Burlington County, according to officials at the base. A Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst spokeswoman says they got to have shorter names for these bases. Spokeswoman says that there were 4 fighter jets and a refueling tanker. She says they were making a planned stop at the base after military exercises at the Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. These types of exercises are called Red Flag Air Combat Training, which includes crews from the U.S. and its allies. So
Jets that America sold Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah. So they were training, I guess. Well, anyway, we had an exciting time there with military jets flying over Philadelphia. Jim Mattis, the Defense Secretary, freezes Donald Trump's ban on transgenders pending a review. I think they're going to go ahead and stop people from coming in, but just the people who are already in, I think, are the problem there, as I understand. OJ preparing for prison release. 2 seriously injured in cruelty-free bull running alternative. California might allow gender X on IDs. And Rubio open USA to Venezuelans. Fears of new migrant jungle in heart of Europe. Let's look at this transgender troop thing here. See what Jim Mattis is up to. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis late Tuesday announced that transgender troops will be allowed to continue serving in the military pending the results of a study by experts. The announcement follows on an order from President Trump, first announced on a tweet, declaring that transgender service members can no longer serve in the military, effectively reversing an Obama administration policy. The order also affects the Department of Homeland Security, which houses the Coast Guard. Once the panel reports its recommendations and following my consultation with the Secretary of Homeland Security, I will provide my advice to the President concerning implementation of his policy direction, Mattis said in a statement. In the interim, current policy with respect to currently serving members will remain in place. Mattis's move buys time for the Pentagon to determine how and if it will allow thousands of transgender troops to continue to serve, whether they will receive medical treatment, or how they will be discharged. As Defense Secretary, Mattis has emphasized that he has little tolerance for policies that detract from military readiness or the Pentagon's effectiveness on the battlefield. At the last moment in June, he delayed the Pentagon's plan to accept new transgender troops. His reasoning, He demanded more study to determine the effect of recruiting them on the Pentagon's ability to fight and win wars. I think that's important. You know, we've had these situations with the Navy in the Pacific where we've had 4 accidents so far in the Pacific involving naval vessels, U.S. naval vessels. Twice a Aegis-equipped battleship or is it cruiser? I guess has collided with oil tankers twice on 2 occasions. And these Aegis systems are supposed to be able to track 100 targets at one time, but they run into another ship, a big one, an oil tanker. Another one ran aground. Another one hit a South Korean fishing boat. So it's obvious that the U.S. Military needs to focus more on fighting and training and less on these other things, such as these other distractions, I would say, such as having transgender people in the military and all sorts of sensitivity training or whatever. Saw an article yesterday about a state senator in California who is going to make it a criminal offense for people to refer to others with the wrong pronoun.
That's kind of going over the boundaries, wouldn't you say?
So if that kind of thing gets into the military, then, you know, how are you going to fight a war with that? Doesn't matter if you have all those machines and bombs and everything. Eventually it comes down to the people. And the people have to have the will to fight, the ability to fight, the training to fight, and the training to use those things. The training to drive those boats or those ships. All right. So, and obviously that is not taking place today. By the way, that the naval vessels in the Pacific keep bumping into things in the night. We hope that the people in Houston area, Port Arthur area, and now southwest Louisiana will be safe today, and hope that people can gather their information from sources that they trust and then make the right decisions. You know, people who are in those mega refugee centers may want to stay there, may want to leave, may want to, you know, go someplace else to a friend's house or something like that, where they maybe their family might be safer. It's these times of emergencies when we really need to be able to make the correct decisions, the right decisions at the right time, and to act on those decisions. And certainly the family unit is very important in that respect. It's important to stay together as a family and to support each other. Let's study more about how to prepare for emergencies and be prepared for that as we go through this judgment period.
I ordered my fanny pack yesterday.
Oh, you did?
Yep, it's going to be my survival belt.
Mm.
And all the things the King talked about on Sunday, I'm going to pack my fanny pack with.
Okay.
So that's starting tomorrow.
All right. Great. Greg is going to be prepared. Just hope there's no emergency between now and tomorrow.
That's right.
All right. So God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come. Thank you for joining us.
Glad you.